Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be part 2. Let's make part 2 a little bit better than part 1. I didn't realize there, as soon as you started the music, kind of drowns everything out. So fortunately, that's okay. Because all we did in part 1 was model the base train, right? We built the constraints, built the wheels, put the vehicle seat on, and that was it. So now what we need to do is add the code to the train. And of course, so the first thing we want to do is we want to insert an object, probably a prompt, and then we want to insert a script. We want to insert a script, and then we want to insert a screen interface. Now, in the screen interface, we want to insert a local script. Okay. Don't worry about buttons yet. We're not going to code any buttons. We're going to code buttons the same that we did for the car, in that when you press W, it's going to go forward, and when you press S, it's going to go backwards. Eventually, we will rewrite those codes into buttons. It's just for now, for testing. That seems to be the best thing to do, right? Because then we can move the train, we can interact with it, and then we can have a couple of keyed, a couple of whatever keys that sort of do a few things that we want, and we can do some basic testing. Okay, so then we also want to insert a remote event. And then inside the screen interface, we want to insert an object. We want a, what is it? It's an object value. All right, and then we want to call this action, and we can call this script here the train function. Okay, so now the remote event is going to be our connection, just for easy peasy purposes. So in here we are going to say local event equals script dot parent dot connection, and then we're going to say event on server event. Could do that. We'll just say connect function, and then of course we want the player. And we'll get a variable because we're going to be throwing variables from pure. So we'll say if variable is equal to go, then just like that. And they're just going to be, for now, they're going to be single. We're not going to say else. They're just going to be single variables. Like that. And then this will be reverse. And we need reverse stop. Alright, easy peasy, simple. Now, the other thing that we need to do is we need to take the constraints I see 2 1 2 I'll group that as a model. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So in the train, in the vehicle seat, may as well, let's insert a folder. And we're going to call this wheels. All right, and then what we want to do is we want to have these constraints. So this is going to be A and B. It only matters, this just matters for the individual code, right? So we can say A, B, C. There we go. All right. And then we'll have to do the same for the other one. So we'll reverse it. Is that right? Yeah. Just so that way when the train is moving, we can think of it, all the action is going to be like in the same, it's going to have the same motions. Because some of these wheels are going to have to spin forwards, and some of these wheels are going to have to spin backwards. Right, depending on their rotation. I don't know what their exact rotation is. And potentially none of these are set up yet as motors either. So, insert object. And this will be wheels B. Easy peasy, easy peasy. It could be whatever, right? You could put your suspension in there. You could just call it constraints. It's just, front hub, rear hub, easy peasy. So now what we want to do is we want to set these up as, let's see, if we make the rotation visible. Oh, that's only when we're in the game, I think. Let's see. Angular limits. We don't want the angular limits, but we want the actuator type to be a motor. Yeah, see, there we go. So when you turn it into the motor, it shows you which way they rotate. These are rotating that way, and these are rotating that way. So these ones are going to have to spin forward and reverse, right? You see that? So when we're coding it, one has to have a positive number, and one has to have a negative number. That's all I was kind of looking at. So we want actuator type as a motor, and then our torque, we want to make sure this is infinite. And this is as big as it can be. I know, maximum torque, right? Then the wheels just spin and spin and spin. Whatever. It goes. You can lower that, right? And whatever. You could use the code to determine it. I think there's some physics calculations you can put in here. But, on your own you can do that. You can go into A chassis, you can see how they do it, and you can try to do something like that. And what that'll do is that'll smooth acceleration and deceleration of the train. I've tested it out here. It's not bad. In the actual world, right? The quote-unquote world. And this is going to take forever to put this rail system in. I don't know what I was thinking. We'll just leave it at that. So what I need to do now is make a passenger train. There we go. It's loud, yes. It's loud. I'll cut that down here to like that. There we go. So I'm working on it. There's a little bit going on. As you can see, the trailers, they're doing okay. The train still moves around a little bit. And a lot of it is testing. We don't know. I've never made a train in Roblox before, so I'm not too sure how it handles. Seems to do okay though. Oh, it derailed there. It derailed. So now for that, have to have a tow truck for that one. A crane. That's where we're going to need a rail crane for that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think that'll be neat. And then I'll modify this. Where did it derail? It derailed here. This little bit here. Maybe I'll have to make that a little different. Perhaps. See, this could come into here and then make the corner there instead of coming out. You know, anyways, that's just part of laying the track, right? So all that sort of stuff. Haven't done it, still have to do it, right? That's what we're doing now. So we have our constraints, we have our train. Now what we need to do is we need to program the proximity prompt. So let's insert a script into here. And we're going to call this button. Now, if we initially you can label the first few scripts, it's good for troubleshooting. Eventually, you're just going to make scripts, and you're probably not going to name them. And it doesn't really matter, anyways, because when the error comes up, you'll sort of have an idea where it is. But especially in the beginning, it's really important to label the first few scripts. Right? Local. Now we always want to get the name of the player, and then that way we can give the player a reward or whatever. We can track the player, but we always want to get the name of the player, especially if they're going to interact with a button. And that's probably what I would do for something like this, is I would give them experience when they're sitting in the seat. So what that means is initially we're going to set these scripts up, but we'll have to go back through. We'll have to add the data save code back to a lot of these scripts. And so that's why I'm saying when you're doing your early development of your games, it's really important. I know it's to think ahead and to plan that. You know, try and do as much as you can with the terrain. Try and do as much as you can with the buildings before you start adding code, because you may have to go back through it and change some of that code around. And if you start adding models that have lots of code to them or lots of scripts, it's going to take you a long time to go through it, right? So what I like to do is, in this case, I like to isolate it, make it in its own sort of window. People always ask me, well, how come you don't edit the live server? Well, I mean, I probably can now, but Blue Truck and City is full of so many errors, you just can't edit the live server, right? So you have to isolate elements and then put them back in the server. But if they work in this little instance, they're going to work in the main game. That's the most important thing to remember. All right, so how does the button work? Well, essentially what it's going to do is it's going to clone the interface, but we also need to make sure that the value is bound to the remote event. And then I guess here we have the player's name, which is probably pretty important. We can probably do that. That's another good way of, so we can insert object, a string value, and we'll just call that player name. Player. That's really important because that's another thing we can use that. So when the player is traveling down the track, we're going to come into anyways, eventually this is going to really matter. All right, so right now, so that's what we're going to do. So let's set up this button script. So what we want to do is we want to say local. I guess we don't need to, let's see. So the first thing we want to do is we want to say scripts.parent.parent .screen GUI .action equals the remote event. Let's make sure we're doing this. I've only done this, a few times, so often I have to go back through and I want to make sure we're referencing the value, and we're making that value the remote event. Okay, so we do have to say action dot value equals script dot parent dot parent. 1, 2, maybe more. Where are we here? Dot connection. Script dot parent dot parent dot connection. There we go. So now we've bound this value to this remote event. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because with the screen interface, when we press a button, it's going to make that value the name of that button, and then this is going to go, oh, there's a value, it's changed. Okay, that's how we connect the functions. So just like that. Then what we want to do is we want to say a script dot parent dot parent dot screen GUI. This is where it's important that we got the player. Now, do we need clone dot parent? Okay, then we need to say clone dot parent equals, and we need to say player. Yep, dot player GUI, just like that. There we go. And then we're going to say script dot parent dot parent dot player names dot value equals player dot name. Perfect. So let's just look at what we've done in the initial setup here. We should get a screen interface, and the value inside here should be our name. So let's see. So if we look at us, we now have our screen interface, and if we look at the train, our name is now in the vehicle seat. So again, that's important. When we're tracking the player and we're trying to give the player rewards, we need the player's name so we can find them and give them that reward. So the best way to do that is printing their name in the workspace so you can find it in the workspace and use it to give them rewards. Simple, easy peasy. Okay, now what we want to do is we need to program the interface. So we want to program a couple of buttons into the interface. So how do we do that? Well, let's look at one of the interfaces we've already programmed and take a look. So we need to reference the value, we need to get the player, we need to get the mouse, and then we need to get the user input service. Just like that. All right. Why do we need the user input service? Let's go over that, because we need to connect to it and then we need to disconnect. Why do we need to disconnect? So that way it doesn't continue to function, right? It says, oh, while they're pressing the key, we're going to active. While we're not pressing the key, we're not going to be active. It's the same thing as mouse button 1 down, mouse button 1 up. I love it. It's great. So when it goes holding down, it's go. When it's not, we'll say go stop, because that's how we have it programmed. So now in our train functions, what we need to do is we could say local. Oh, let me slow this down for a minute. This local script is the local script that will now control our new interface. Okay, so while we're sitting in the train, this is our new local script. So what I've done is this is user input service dot input began, and we're going to connect function, and then we need to say if the key code is W, if we press W, then script dot parent, this should be action actually. There we go, dot action, fire server. The way we've set up, so I'm just leaving this here for now so you can look at the code. And then what this one does is input ended is when you've released the button. What is it going to do? It's going to tell the train to stop. Just like that. Okay, so now we're going to go into the train functions. So now we need to say A equals script dot parent dot wheels, and then we need to say local B equals script dot parent dot wheels B. And now we need to say a dot angular velocity equals, and I think I was doing like 80, but we can slow that down. We could say 44, and I don't know why, it was just like with the weight and everything. And then there's b. No, we don't want the rest of that. That's the rest of that code is garbage. So let's here. You know what? We just don't need it. I don't know why it's telling me that. So all right, one. So B is going to be the opposite. Which one of these is going to be the opposite here? Let's see. Let's factor that in. A is going to go in reverse. So this one is going to have to be like that. And it's going to have to be like that. A, B. So one axle, two axles, three axles. That's the best way to look at that. That's going to be C, D, all right, and then just change that over. Okay, and then we say go stop, same thing, but all these are just going to value to 0. Easy peasy, easy peasy. Now what we could do is we could, for example, you could have a weld on the wheels, and when you go value 0, the weld could be active on the wheels, and then the wheels could stop. And then what you could do is you could put like a little particle in there and some screeching, and you can make it seem like this, you know. Okay, so let's just test that. We should go forward a little bit, and then we should be able to go backwards. So we activate the prompt. Something is going on here. So the front ones are going. They're going. This one's is not going at all. Which one's that? D? Oh. Suppose it would help if I labeled them. Okay, so now yeah, it might not be enough to push the train. Well, there it goes. There it goes. All right. So that's that. So it goes forward pretty good actually. Now you see how the wheels are wobbling? What I haven't done is limit the hinges. Well, we can do that. It's on a straightaway. And this will prevent the wheels from wanting to spin. This is going to help it stay on the track. It's going to prevent it derailing. Is a lot of what this is going to do. But you have to remember that if you're yeah, and anyways, that's all. Just going to prevent it from derailing. Okay, so now we can do reverse. Basically the same thing. We can just take this and we just opposite. And so this is where we would add all the rest of our functions, okay? Here in the screen interface. This is where we would add a button. So when we're in there, in the seat, we have a button and all this kind of stuff. Let's see. So we got to hook up the S button. Like that. And this could be reverse. And this could be reverse stop. There we go. Yeah, you see how they're kind of, these are good, but these are all off center. I kind of like that actually. All right, there we go. Now it wobbles a little bit because also that's the spacing between the rails. You see there's quite a bit of spacing between the rails there. So a lot of that too, right? This is where we tweak it. There's some tweaking that needs to be done here. Maybe this needs to come this way just a little bit so there isn't so much room. Now if it's too tight, it'll just derail itself every time. So there's kind of, yeah, there we go. See, that's a bit smoother. There we go. You want it to move, but you don't want it to be so loose that it's going to derail. Yeah, that should be all right. Yeah, you see, now they twist, but not that much. Oh, that's cool. So there you have it. Now the rest is just really, it's just we could finish setting up the button. We could say script. Then we could say button dot enabled equals false, and then what we can do is what I added here. It wasn't that one. It was this one here. This was a separate script. Yes, this is our separate script. So what does this script do? This script activates when we leave the seat. All right, so inside the vehicle seat, we want to add this. And we'll go over this. Now, where did I get these functions from? I actually looked in a chassis to see. And a chassis has this function where when you leave the seat, it does all the stuff, right, to the vehicle. So that's what this does here. So what we do is we need to find out where the let's see, script. Yeah, dot parent dot wheels. There we go. So we find the constraints, right? Oh, that's interesting. I just realized that we're missing two. So, and then what does it do? Well, when you sit in the seat, it creates a seat weld. And it's called seat weld. Here, we'll go over this. Let's go over this. Yeah, it's actually called seat weld. And that's what holds the player in the seat. So that's what we're basically looking for. So we're saying if in the seat, I'll show you. We'll go over this. and then I need to right. So what it does, it reactivates the proximity prompt. It neutralizes the player name. Player names. And then what it does is it gets rid of the interface on the player. Now, why is that? So basically what we're doing is we're fully disconnecting from the train when we do this, okay? So for example, while we're in the, because what happens is that, okay, so we now have the interface, right? So let's see, when I press W, the train goes forward, and when I press S, the train goes backwards. So we don't want that. So when I leave the seat, player is not a valid. There we go. Yeah, we don't want the train to be moving. So I could do like anchor apart so the train doesn't move. But I thought, nah, we don't want to do that, right? Because then the wheels will spin and all that kind of stuff. So what we want to do is we just want to totally disconnect from the vehicle. So we're moving now, right? We're moving now. And then when we leave the vehicle seat, something's going on here. Script.parent proximity prompt. Oh, this is button. So when we activate the button, we disable the script. Perfect. All right, so we have the interface. We're going forwards, we're going backwards. Yes, there, you see? Now we're totally disconnected from the train. And now, did you see that delay there? So that delay, that is why when you get out of your HSE vehicle, there's a bit of latency there because it's searching for the player and it's trying to do those few things. And then we can reconnect to the train and we can drive the train again. And then, as soon as we leave the seat, that was strange. It gave me an error, which it shouldn't do. But it did. I wonder why. Alright, so if you're too fast, so what we need to do is we need to build a little bit of latency in there, because if you're too fast, as you saw, it'll cause the vehicle to have a glitch. Now it makes sense why HSE glitches out sometimes in the way that it does. So we'll have to figure that out and we'll have to build that in there. But now, hopefully with that, you get the basic idea. This is kind of part 2. We added the code. And now we can do, let's say we wanted to, we can work on the screen interface. So we can bring that down here into here. We could insert, let's say we wanted to insert a frame. We could add buttons. We could add whatever we want. I just want to show that this is, let's see, this can go back into here. There you go. See, we can have our buttons. We can interact with the train. So now what we've done is we've created a vehicle. We've created a vehicle. It doesn't look like much, but eventually with a little bit of work and modeling, it can look like something. So in part 3, we will go over the trailers, connecting the trailers, the pivots, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so thank you for watching part 2. A little bit better than part 1. Hopefully not drowning you out with all these loud sounds here. And yeah, so hopefully in part 3 what we'll do is I'm going to model this a little bit. This is going to be a passenger train. And then I'm going to model a couple of trailers, which are just going to be passenger trailers. And then what we'll do is we'll go through some buttons and some lights, and we'll just do a couple of neat things in the second video. So once again, thank you so much for watching, liking, and subscribing. You guys are awesome, and I'm really having a lot of fun with this series. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.